Do you know what my game of the year is?
What? Stardew Valley, isn't it? It's Stardew Valley.
When would it not be?
I don't know. You've only played Stardew Valley like a little bit this
Actually,
year?
I haven't played it since probably March. I could also be thinking of March of last year.
I would like to talk about Psychonauts now.
You shall talk about
I shall
Psychonauts.
talk about Psychonauts because I finished and beat the game a couple of days ago, and a couple of nights ago I went through and found all the memory vaults. Which, if you've ever played any of the Psychonauts games, each brain level has a couple of memory vaults in it. It's basically like little tiny piggy vaults that like run around and you have to like hit them to open up.
I'm Piggy.
Yeah, piggy. Let's see. I unlocked all the memory vaults. I don't think I'm going to go ahead and 100% everything in the game, but I feel like I've gotten a good enough feeling. It's like I understand this game. I like it. I enjoy it. It's probably my game of the year right now. I'm going to say Psychonauts 2 is the game of the year because it is by far the most childish and most mature game I have ever played this year. As I was saying, it's the most childish and most mature game I ever played. And I want to elaborate on this one because it's mature in the way because it's a game about healing, and it's a game about, respecting their boundaries and helping people overcome them, but not like fixing them. And childish in the way that one of the bosses is a vomiting goat puppet. Sorry, 3 vomiting goat puppets. I had to clarify. There is a boss.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I was trying to see how you would actually respond to that.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I'll try to keep this spoiler free because a lot of the game, there is a couple of big twists in the game, which I don't know if it actually will
You
ruin.
Okay there?
Yeah, would ruin the game experience, but it's one of those, okay, I kind of know, and like you get to see it on your second play. If you play it again, it's like, oh, I see it now. This is the Would You Kindly of the Psychonauts. Okay, it's not as iconic. It's not as iconic as Would You Kindly, but the whole of Psychonauts 2. If you've ever played Psychonauts 1, you know that's a platform game. It mixes in a little bit of combat, a lot of platforming, and a lot of more puzzles where you have to like shift things in a specific order, and some of the puzzles are a little bit ridiculous in the first game. Like you had to use clairvoyance on a certain place, or you had to do that. And it becomes a little more, it exhausts you a little bit. Like I think there was like one, like especially in the Milkman level of Psychonauts 1, is like you heavily had to rely on clairvoyance to use that to get to that point. Like you had to use, like there's a crow you had to use clairvoyance on to open up a gate and get yourself through, and it's a little tough if you don't know what you're doing. And of course, I think I was like, I want to know specifically earlier in the tutorial stages, you're told, okay, this is how you shimmy across a ledge. It's like, okay, that's good. And you don't really shimmy across ledges too much until you reach the Napoleon stage. Essentially, Psychonauts is a good game. It's funny, it's hilarious, and if you've never played Psychonauts, it's really ridiculously cheap on Steam to pick it up and play it. It's also on Game Pass as well. Highly recommend doing it. I will say, but Psychonauts 2 takes that and makes it more of a mature focused game about healing. So basically what you get is Psychonauts 2 is a very grown up a very grown up version of Psychonauts 1.
When did Psychonauts come out?
2005.
Do you think maybe they were kind of considering their fan base has grown up a little bit more since then?
That's actually a good point as well.
I mean, I feel like Tim Schafer would have considered that. You know, he wants to appeal to new audience, but also to not let down the old audience, the people who grew up with this game, who, you know, they're so excited. They're the ones excited about Psychonauts too.
Essentially, in Psychonauts 2, you don't get the convoluted puzzles are gone. It's more focused. It's like you had to go do like certain fetch quests and such like that. You had to do like cooking stuff, and you have to, well, basically do things against the clock. Basically focusing more on platforming and combat, and making sure those two core of the games play really nicely. And they do play very well with each other. I mean, the combat in Psychonauts 2, it's a very interesting thing because it feels like some of that old PS2 style combat. And instead of like, you know, you get access, you have all your access to your psychic powers, but you could also remap to your psychic powers to any of the 4 buttons. So basically you can like create your own little arsenal to kind of like fit with the situation. Like, you know, you have your pyrotechnic blast, and you can load up pyrotechnics, your Psy Blaster, your telekinesis. You use telekinesis. This game does, in the combat, it does force you to use your powers a lot more. Like, I used I can count on my fingers the more times I've actually used telekinesis in this game than I did in Psychonauts 2. So I use the it forces you to use TK a little bit more. And that's actually kind of exciting though, now that I'm going back and thinking about it. Because you know, you can throw something at an enemy and it knocks it out. Or there's another enemy that you have to use the telekinesis on before you can actually attack it. And there are some enemies that you have to like use the pyrotechnics. And there's also a new ability. One of the new abilities is a time stopping ability, which you had to use to like slow things down a little bit. So, you know, you get to play a little bit with some time mechanics, and you get a nice variety of platforming challenges with the time slowing down and such. So, you know, everything kind of like melts together pretty nicely, and it feels, you know, of course it doesn't feel like a perfect game, but it feels like a human game. And it also, I feel like one of the stronger themes of Psychonauts is, you know, you are a psychonaut. There is a lot of big responsibility going into somebody's mind. So, and in the other game, you know, you just like, okay, you just like had to just slap a door on somebody's mind and just like go in just to try to figure them out a little bit. But in this new game, there are 6, I think there are 5 main areas that basically, you know, there's something up with them, and you basically ask them, hey, is it okay that I go into your mind? Is that okay with you? So basically you ask them first, and I feel like that little bit is a great humanizing touch to say that you have permission to, you know, help fight things inside your mind, because you can do a lot of damage inside the mind like that. It becomes apparent in like one of the first brains you go into how much trouble you can get into by messing up the mind.
I'm curious. I mean, I know Tim Schafer is not the only one behind it, but it's his baby.
Yeah.
I'm curious how much he knows about psychology.
He did. I was reading an interview about a while back talking about how he, you know, consulted with like mental health people for this game specifically.
Because, I mean, even the first one, there's a lot of psychology in it. But what little bit I did see you play, this one is very heavily I mean, like you even said, it had a really good disclaimer at the beginning.
Yes, there is a disclaimer. I think Take This helped with the disclaimer on the front of it. It does tells you what kind of things they are talking about and these depictions of it, although very funny. And they were talking
They make
about,
it lighthearted.
And they were talking about like the one of the fears being the dental things. Like the dental thing, I didn't mind so much. There's a lot of teeth in the beginning of the game. Like, I would say a lot. It's hilarious, but it can get over, like, there's sometimes like the game gets a little bit much. As I said before, there are sock puppet vomiting goats.
Oh, you didn't mention they were sock puppet. I don't think you said they were sock puppets.
Okay, they're like, they were like hand puppet. They were rough.
I don't think you mentioned they were puppets.
Yeah, they're
You said vomiting goats.
Yes, puppet vomiting goats.
But it's fascinating just the level of psychology because, okay, like I said, I didn't watch very much, but I did see there was one part, and I think this is probably a little bit, I can't say too much because I think it's a little bit end game, maybe. But the character that seems to have, my impression was it was split personalities.
Are you talking about Cassiopeia?
Yes.
The book one. The book level.
Okay, so that's not the end level thing.
It's not end game, but it's one of the later brain levels.
But there was like there's 3 or 4 of them.
Well, yeah, there was like 3 different personalities.
But basically they were split, just different aspects, not like split where like they each are a different personality, but split where it was different aspects of that one individual's personality.
Yeah, it was like their projection of them at the time.
And then it was like, well, I'm the real one. We're all the real one.
Yeah.
What little bit I did catch was that they were realizing, we're all Cassiopeia.
Yeah, Cassiopeia.
We're all, it's not I'm the real one, you're the real one. I thought that was, so it really does address actual mental health and real, is it okay to say psychoses?
Yes. And it does a little more care this way because like the later in Psychonauts, first Psychonauts, is you basically you're helping people at an asylum, which is like, not the best depiction of mental health is like
I mean, it's not a lie. It's not positive, but there are negatives, and especially historically, there are negatives.
I mean, the way it's portrayed, it's like it goes into the aspects of like, oh, this is the crazy house kind of thing.
Well, and historically, mental health was looked at, these aren't, upright citizens of society, so we get to experiment on them because who's going to care? That was the mentality.
Yeah, but there's like a little more care to the care. They like Psychonauts 2 cares about a little bit more about the minds you are going into.
It explored it, and now
it's honing,
reveres it,
and that's where the maturity comes in a little bit. It's like there's like a little more respect for it. There is, you even get comments from Raz like saying that he used to like hurt goats, but now with the telekinesis powers, you can pet any of the animals. And it's like, and he even mentions like, I'm sorry for hitting you all the time and setting you on fire.
And one I saw, I didn't see very much of it, but it looked like somebody who was probably catatonic and you needed to go into their brain, but because they weren't.
Oh yes,
conscious,
the Jack Black level.
Was that what that is?
Yes.
I heard Jack Black's voice, but I didn't see the in-betweens.
Yeah.
But I remember I saw somebody who was not conscious. I'm guessing they were catatonic from trauma?
He wasn't catatonic.
Okay.
It was another brain put into his.
Okay.
Then. And that brain was seeing sights and sounds and lights for the first time in over 20 years. And that was like, and they were experiencing a sensory overload, so to speak. So that's one of the major.
Yeah,
and you also deal with, in that level, you deal with panic attacks, which that was one of the times I had to like step away for a little bit. It's like, okay, that fight is a little too much.
Probably where I would have to step back.
Yeah.
But one thing, and I don't remember if this was in the first one or not, because I don't remember everything. Because I've played a little bit, and then I've watched you play it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But when you are seeing through someone else's eyes, you see,
Clairvoyance.
but you see how they see you. Each time it's different.
That
was fascinating.
It's very prominent in this game.
Because, I mean, okay.
Clairvoyance it works twice full as like finding hidden stuff and also seeing what people think of you at that time.
And see, it's interesting because, I mean, are they seeing you differently based on their opinion of you or their perception of you? Or is it the idea of like, does everybody actually see everything the same way? Like, do you see what I perceive as blue? Do you we both perceive it as a blue, but could what you perceive as blue actually be what I perceive as green? So we just have different definitions. Like, does that make sense? That's a thing. I don't know what that is, but that's, one of those things I've always been fascinated by, that it's the question of, what we perceive as this, do we actually perceive it differently?
Yeah. I mean, like, basically, I don't know if I can answer that question.
It's easier explained like in colorblind.
Yeah.
People who are colorblind don't necessarily, I've learned to understand that's blue. Turns out blue is not at all what I thought blue was.
Yeah, but clairvoyance comes full circle back, and basically you can like inhabit anybody's mind to see like what they think of you at that time.
I like when he's the little scribbly.
Yeah. Oh, that's another power. That's
not clairvoyance?
That's not clairvoyance. Clairvoyance,
didn't somebody view him as an animal?
A few times.
I remember seeing somebody saw him as an animal.
I think it was like a couple of the interns might have seen him as a squirrel, or like.
Yes, I remember a squirrel.
And if you like look through the eyes of one of the rats laying around, you would look like this vicious ah. And I think there is actually since Jack Black, I will just leave it as this. If you play Psychonauts 2 and use clairvoyance on Jack Black's character after the game, you'll see a very special surprise. I was like, I had to like look. I was like, what is? Oh, this is good. This is good. But you get to like see like what their opinions of are you over time. Like the interns, like there are like instead of like extra campers, you're joining the intern program, and you have like there are several different interns. I love the interns. They're some of my there's some really good characters, and there's a very specific action sequence after like one of the mines that's a very excellently well done action sequence, and the framing of it is so well put together, and it's just it's dynamic. Later on, I think I'll do like once it's been out for a few weeks, I think I could do like a full spoilery thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because there's a lot of good themes in it. Like, I want to explore how much, because it does it's a game about healing, and it's a game about past trauma, and and it's just there's all this, and like all the brains, like especially like the late game brains, they're all connected in a way. It forms for a tighter plot, and I enjoyed it. Go play Psychonauts 2. It's on Game Pass right now.